Simon, I think this is the time where we move on to the segment which has taken Australia by storm. It's called the intermission.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's intermission time.
All right, Simon, I don't
All
really
right.
know how we sort of enter into this one because you have been poo-pooing the bear for the last 2 to
No,
3 years.
I haven't been poo-pooing it. I do want to just put a little asterisk in there. I haven't been poo-pooing it. I just haven't watched it. I understand it's highly acclaimed and everyone involved in it has hit the ground running career-wise and their chemistry is great on screen and all that is true. But I hadn't seen a second of it until 5 a.m. this morning when, following our discussion late last night, when you put it to me, hey, why don't we do what we've always said we'd do? And you finally settle in and watch The Bear and we talk about it. I thought, fine, I'll do that. I've literally got nothing else to talk about this week. It's the quietest week for theatrical releases, movie-wise, in a long, long time. So I took it upon myself to binge all but the last couple of episodes of The Bear, season 1 and season 2, with season 3 just around the corner. And you're right, you said it's going to be hard to talk about season 3 because they keep things very close to the chest. I did a bit of research, and you're right, there's not a lot of information out there about where the series is going to go after it premieres next June 27, next week. But I do have some points of view on the series so far. In a nutshell, Dan Barrett, your sort of reflections upon 2 seasons of The Bear, its highs, and if there are any, its lows.
Okay, so look, first of all, before we get into that, I'd just like to say I'm just looking down at our run sheet here. Simon, who has discovered a website called canva.com, has in the last couple of weeks really gone to town in terms of creating quite some, I'm not going to say complicated, let's just say Canva-based imagery, where he seems to be photoshopping both myself and himself into the kitchen at the Bear. And I have to say that's
Check
some,
out our Facebook
fairly...
page.
I was going to say that's some fairly decent work and a step up from last time I saw Simon doing some Photoshop of my face onto various things where he put me in blackface on Facebook the other day, of which I
AI
received quite
put
a
you
number
in
of comments.
blackface. I just took advantage of it. You did not receive comments. Who made comments about that?
I'm not going to name names on the program, but there was at least 4
damn.
comments that came my way about it. And they're like, hey, Dan, is that photo still up? And I'm like, yeah, it's still up. Anyway, let's move on. Look, my thoughts on the Bear. So
Yes.
broadly, the Bear came along, and when it first dropped, it was with absolutely no fanfare or expectation. Like, nobody really expected much from this program at all. I
Sure.
kind of like the idea of another show set in a kitchen. Haven't really seen sort of much since, like the Kitchen Confidential days of like the mid to late 2000s when there was that TV show based on the Anthony Bourdain book, starring one Bradley Cooper. Please excuse me. Yeah, so there's that. There's also the British film called Boiling Point, which was set in a kitchen with like some real-time business happening throughout the runtime of that film. And following the success of The Bear, they very quickly put a Boiling Point spin-off series into production, which I thought was kind of interesting. And you can see that one here on Prime Video. But The Bear, when it debuted, they put all the episodes down, like on one day. People just blitzed through it, and very quickly everyone was talking about this program. It's funny, it's entertaining. People watching the video stream will really be seeing me coughing up a storm here.
Wow, you can see the blue vein in your forehead. Keep going.
Oh, it's something. And Simon, tell me, what did you think of The Bear season 1 and 2? Coming out from later.
All right, I'll take over here while you take your breath. All right, so you're right. We can cut all
Simon,
this
like
out.
Fraser Crane, I am listening.
Okay. So I came to episode 1 full of enthusiasm, and episode 1 does not let you down. It is a energetic, propulsive, invigorating piece of television that, for me, had a similar feel to the Adam Sandler film Uncut Gems. There was a level of anxiety to that first episode, which was shot in really sort of dark hues and a very grainy look and feel. It really evoked the Chicago neighborhood that the restaurant is set in, that the show is set in. And then I get the feeling that that was the pilot episode, or that was an early episode, and they tweaked aspects of it, because not in any episodes after that did the look or the general feel of that first episode repeat itself. There was certainly high tension, and there was certainly some developments amongst the characters that were touched on in that first episode, but nothing else had that propulsive ensemble feel about it. That first episode reminded me of the very best of ER, the very best of NYPD Blue. It had that energy, it had that grit, that grime. I got a real sense of where those people were from and who they were. Episodes after that, as the kitchen cleaned itself up, and the hierarchy of the chefs in the kitchen and their roles that they played became more apparent to us and to them, I think the series settled into a. It's tough to say gentle, because it's some pretty abrasive language in there, and some pretty charming psychopaths throughout, sociopaths throughout the story. One of them played by the terrific Oliver Platt. But it settled into a far more familiar beat to me, and I think that's probably why it has done so well, because it is a show that has a familiarity about it, an ensemble piece that. And all the characters, and like I said at the top of the podcast, these are all actors who are hitting their stride at just the right time, who are delivering on their promise from past work in this, right at this point in time in this
Simon,
series, and that is
can I just interrupt on this? So I think the first episode, you are right in saying that the first episode really just lays it all out on the table with that sort of strong heightened tension that runs through it, and some really sort of tense relationships set up through it that probably isn't repeated in as concentrated a manner as you find in that first half-hour episode. But that's probably more that it's sort of setting the overall artistic ambition for the program, and then after that it just lets it breathe a little bit more, which is what you start seeing as the show goes on. I think there are certainly moments throughout the show where they do get back to that incredibly high pressure, high tension kitchen environment. And there's certainly the episode. And I don't know if you've reached the flashback episode in season 2 yet, where you see the family dinner. Have you seen that yet, Simon?
Is that the one where you meet Mike, where you see the John Bernthal character for the first time, where they're cooking in the kitchen? Or is it the one with Jamie Lee Curtis?
No, in the second season, where there's... Actually, no, Jamie Lee Curtis, presumably she's in the one episode. It's like the hour-long episode where... okay, so you have seen that one. I would say the tension that ratchets up in that episode is equal, if not, well beyond anything that you're seeing in this pilot episode. They certainly don't leave that tension behind, but I think that they just become a little bit more selective in when they're executing it.
The other thing there's a couple of things I thought. I think that the show does itself a tremendous favor by setting itself in the really tough working class suburb of Chicago. Chicago, even as you reach the very top of your game in Chicago, there still seems to be a hardened edge to the life you live and the success that you have. And I think if they were to put this in LA or to put this in Miami or New York, it'd be a very different sort of story. They get away, certainly the character of Richie, and the sister Sugar, played by Abby Elliott, they seem very much of Chicago. And Jeremy Allen White, of course, is terrific in the lead, and they seem very much of that setting. So I think the Chicago setting helps us. I loved seeing in the background of so many shots these great movie posters, Speed and Jumpin' Jack Flash and All the Right Moves and Groundhog Day and Marked for Death, the Steven Seagal film. So... And I was trying to think what point they were trying to make with that, whether these are characters that sort of live in a fantasy world or see their life through the fantasy of film success or film fantasy. And I just found it a really interesting perspective and point of view for them to have that as a backdrop. So, I really like.
I think it just speaks the idea of escape.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Well, you've got
And hope, I think.
yeah, you've got all these characters who feel somewhat trapped by the worlds that they all inhabit for one reason or another. Either it's financial. I mean, it's all financial for all of the characters, but for some of them, it's probably more based on expectations on them as to who they see themselves as in sitting in like the sort of societal, structures put in place in the
Sure.
world. They all just kind of, there's obviously various ways they see that their lives are going, and I don't think any of them anticipate the kitchen's going to be the thing that actually elevates them in their sort of social strata. But certainly by the end of the second season, you'll see that all of them are in a place of, being able to reach that next level in a way that, they obviously aren't there at the beginning of the first season.
Apart from that first episode, probably my favorite episode of season 1 was episode 7, and I didn't get the episode name, but it's the one where they set up the tablet and they forget to turn the print option off, and they end up having all these, and it felt like I can't remember if it was, and I meant to do research to find out if it was, but it looked like a single shot episode, like just the camera whirling around in this beautifully choreographed sort of meltdown in the kitchen. It's the one where Ayo Edebiri's character storms out after one too many clashes with Jeremy Allen White and Richie as well. So that was a terrific bit of filmmaking. They use dreams a lot in this. There's a lot of not even flashbacks, but actual dreams within dreams, where the one where the kitchen's burning, and the one later on when he's the episode that opens with him sort of on a TV set, sort of a TV show, a cooking show, all of which turns into a dream. So that's not often my favorite way for a narrative to come across. I think it cuts corners and is a very sort of direct way to get a message across. It's not very subtle, but then there's elements of the show that aren't very subtle that work really well. So certainly season 1 is my favorite of the 2 seasons. The second season, in which they're building the new restaurant, they've closed down the beef and they're about to open that. They're trying to open the Bear, and the ticking clock sort of sensation of 12 weeks till opening, 7 weeks till opening. It's got like a ticking time bomb sort of feel to it. So it's got its own energy. I just thought a couple of the characters didn't have the room to breathe and the room to sort of expand from what they did in the first episode, in the first season. The second season does have this beautiful sequence in which Jeremy Allen White meets his ex-girlfriend, played by Molly Gordon, and they have this great talk that cuts back and forth between really intense close-ups. God, she looks so beautiful in that scene, and he was great opposite her. So it's some beautifully written television. It absolutely is. It's not just all screaming and swearing and yes chef, no chef, although those scenes are terrific. And the episode that Rami Youssef directed, where the pastry chef goes to Copenhagen, has a different feel and a different flavour to it, no pun intended, entirely. And I think that the second season benefits from that terrifically.
Yeah, I actually really loved that episode, and I think it's just unfortunate that one comes right before the family dinner flashback episode, because that one was something which just generated a lot of attention, a lot of heat around it, where that, I just kind of think that Copenhagen episode is so beautiful and charming, and just there was a relaxed vibe around that episode, which was just really welcome. I think awkwardly that came out roughly about the same time as Ted Lasso season 3 hit, where there's actually a very similar episode where they go to Amsterdam.
Okay, Ted Lasso, ruin it for everyone again. Jeez. Okay, so yes, look, I'm on board. Having taken far too long to watch this show, I can see exactly why it's so popular with audiences and with critics and award bodies as well. So I don't know if season 2 deserves the acclaim that season 1 got. I'll be a little bit surprised. Well, I won't be surprised because it's the buzz show at the moment. But I don't know if it's going to deserve all the awards it'll win come Emmy season and all the nominations it'll get. But certainly there's a lot of really great stuff in there. So you won me over, Dan Barrett. You absolutely won me over. You've convinced me that The Bear is worth sticking with and worth watching and generally worth all the acclaim.
I just need to sit down and watch Evil properly, but we'll get to that later. Something which I just wanted to highlight with season 2 of The Bear, which I actually think is quite a bit better than Simon's really indicating here. I think that it actually does lift the game quite significantly past season 1, if only just for that Richie kitchen episode, which you may not have seen yet, maybe. Have you seen that yet, Simon?
No, I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen
Okay.
that one.
How you're not talking about that yet, I don't know. Like, that is a powerhouse episode of TV. But
Yeah, no, it is.
probably when I think about that second season, what I keep on coming back to in my mind is the relationship between the Molly Gordon character and the Kami character. It's There's one episode where it's really the two of them as they start getting really hot and heavy together, and most of that episode is scored to songs by the Replacements, and it is probably the sexiest like half hour of TV in a long time, heightened only because the Replacements being played, and we all know that's a
Yeah.
fact. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Look, it's a terrific episode, and Molly Gordon is, a bit of a MVP in this series, and in a great ensemble cast. We should point out. Can I just, for the sake of argument, put out there that Ao Edebiri, as compelling and as lovely as she is in this, is still a little bit hampered by her stand-up comedy background and some of the delivery of her lines. They see she doesn't she doesn't underplay very well. There's not a lot of subtext in what she does, and it's a very small, quick sort of to put forward because there's so many good moments she has in this, so many really natural moments that and she's done great work in other stuff that I've loved. But there were just a few moments when some of this seemed a bit actory to me, and it's a small quip. It's just me.
I don't know. I mean, to me, that's part of the charm of the performance that she's delivering. I kind of like that. It's just
Sure.
so very earnest is probably really the best way to describe it. But anyway, Simon, that's The Bear seasons 1 and 2. Season 3 does kick off next week, so we'll probably discuss that to a certain degree on next week's pod, I would imagine. Let's move on now to a segment which we all love to hate. It's called What Else Have You Been Watching?